The other day, I asked you to picture yourself with a terrible broken heart. I told you to picture the person to whom you would not go if you wanted to talk about your problem. We listed a bunch of things that people do that have a tendency to irritate us in terms of listening, and today we're going to focus on another thing which can be really problematic in terms of listening and communication in general, and it's whether you are a thinking-oriented person or a feelings-oriented person. This is based on the Myers-Briggs inventory, which is a personality test that categorizes you into one of 16 categories. I find this dimension of the test to be really fascinating. It's had a major impact on my life, and I'll tell you a little horror story a little bit later on in the video. But let's get down to what this means. Thinking-oriented people have a tendency to think more with their head. Now remember that this whole thing is based on how you evaluate and how you look at the world, how you look at other people, how you make decisions, and how you communicate. So thinking-oriented people are more objective. They are very concerned with the facts of the situation or what they perceive to be the truth of the situation. And they think that the truth is much more important than tact. So they could come across as a little bit tactless once in a while. They don't take that much very personally, and they have kind of a sense of neutrality. Feelings-oriented people, on the other hand, have a tendency to think more with their hearts. They focus on people and how they're feeling in any given situation, not just on how they're feeling, but how everybody in the situation is feeling. They want to create harmony between them and other people. And to them, feelings are much more important than the truth, and tactfulness is also very important because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings with your communication. They have a tendency to drink emotions in and process them and feel them very, very deeply, much more deeply than thinking-oriented people do. So at this point is probably pretty easy for you to figure out which one you are, and also which one all of your friends and family are. It's not that hard. It becomes obvious very, very quickly. Now you can imagine that if two people who are on opposite ends of this continuum come together and have a relationship, there can really be a lot of problems. This is not one of those things where opposites are going to do really well together. In fact, opposites are probably going to have a lot of fights just based on this one thing. Well, feelings have people, the reason is because feelings-oriented people have a tendency, just like thinking-oriented people do, to look at how other people are, and when those people do not communicate like them, they consider it to be a character flaw. I know I've mentioned this before. So if you're a feelings-oriented person, you are likely to look at a fact-oriented person as being very cold, uncaring, unfeeling, maybe harsh, rude, mean, tactless, and blunt. Have a look at this video clip and see if you can figure out which this guy is.
Morning, Sergeant Major.
How do you know what kind of goddamn day it is?
Well, you're right. Of course, he's going to come across as a fact-oriented person. That was Sam Elliott in We Were Soldiers. Now, let's talk about how thinking-oriented people see fact-oriented people. Well, they see them as, in many cases, dramatic, overly emotional, taking things way too personally. They sometimes look at them as a bleeding heart or something like that. And they don't seem to be direct enough, because remember that a feelings-oriented person is going to be very tactful. They might hedge what they're saying a little bit. A thinking person might not even pick up on that, so that's going to cause problems right there. Have a look at the following clip and try to guess which one this person is.
I am innocent. I don't know what this is about. I don't know what I ever did to you, but whatever it was, Regina, I'm sorry. I truly am.
Well, if you guessed feelings, you are absolutely correct. That was Jennifer Goodwin in Once Upon a Time. Now, if you are someone who has family members who are different from you, or friends, or a boyfriend or girlfriend, or you marry somebody who's different from you, it might really cause a lot of problems. I want to tell you a little bit about something that happened in my family a few years back. My husband and I, as you know, we get along great. We've been married for 25 years. We are both fact-oriented people. But all of the women in his family are feelings-oriented people. Now, I'll tell you that back in the beginning of our relationship, I had no idea about any of this stuff, and it never really dawned on me that it was even a thing, frankly. So you can imagine my surprise when about 10 years ago, a relative really basically told me off. And I realized that after I learned a little bit about it, that for the better part of like 2 decades, I had been saying things that hurt them. And really, honestly, it was nothing that I ever meant to hurt them. I love them. I really do. And I had no idea that when I would say certain jokes, or maybe just say what I thought was a completely neutral statement, that it was having a major emotional impact on them. And it all built up and really caused a massive meltdown. I can see now that it's not so much that I was wrong or they were wrong or anything else, but there are really differences. So what can we do about some of these things? Well, you know, if you haven't picked up from the videos now, one of the things you can do is change. This is supposed to be a C, right? You can change. And in fact, really good communicators are flexible communicators. And the interesting part about this fact versus feeling stuff is that once you're tuned into it, you can actually kind of quickly tell how somebody is and adjust your communication accordingly. And I have had to learn to do that because I am very fact-oriented. I mean, I'm like way, way, way down there on the continuum. And I, a lot of times, just don't get why somebody's so upset about something. I really don't. I mean, I'm not dumb or anything, but I really just don't get it. So I've had to train myself to really tune in and look at what other people are feeling and try to understand why something might be such a big deal or might be really hurtful to them. So let me give you a couple of pieces of advice. If you are a feelings-oriented person and you're talking to somebody and it seems like they're being cold or insulting and they're hurting your feelings, try not to assume the worst about that person. Try not to assume that they're trying to hurt your feelings. They might just be saying something that is kind of emotionless to them. They have not attached a lot of meaning to it. The last thing they want to do is hurt your feelings. So assume that they're not and ask them questions. What did you mean by that? Honestly, with my husband's family, if at any time I said something jerky and they had turned to me and said, "Hey, what'd you mean by that? I don't appreciate that," they would have got an instant apology. I really just did not know that I hurt their feelings. And if you are a fact-oriented person, you need to zero in on how the other person is and understand that A, you might need to be a little bit careful about how you phrase things. That was my mistake. And also, people are entitled to feel the way they feel, and you might not understand it. You might even think it's dumb, but they are entitled, and you need to respect that and appreciate the fact that not everybody is like you. I hope you benefited from this discussion. I find it to be an absolutely fascinating topic, and it definitely changed my life knowing about it.